Today on Amplified Whole Health.
If you are an entrepreneur, I think work had better be your hobby because you don't have time for work and a hobby.
You just got to like to work.
You just got to like to work. And I do like to work, and it gets on a lot of people's nerves. My wife and kids probably more, but my kids have learned to appreciate work as a hobby just because you can do things that are fun, that produce.
Welcome to the Amplified Whole Health podcast, where personal and organizational health meet. I'm your host, Justin Collier, and my goal is to bring you insightful interviews with business owners and leaders from a variety of different industries. We'll be talking about employee development, leadership, company culture, and quality products and services, and how they drive success in business. Thanks for joining me, and let's get started. Well, thanks for listening. I appreciate everyone joining. I would like to remind people to go ahead and like, follow, subscribe, etc. to Amplified Whole Health. And today I'm joined in studio by Joey Marrone. And Joey, you are an entrepreneur. I can't think of any other way to describe you. That's who you are at your heart. I mean, every time I've ever run into you, you're thinking and you're moving forward on stuff. So is that right?
Yeah, today's term entrepreneur, I think from the younger generation perspective, they think of the webmaster who makes it big because he sells something online. I'm more of the dirt in my fingernails, hands-on entrepreneur guy.
Yeah, and you've been hands-on entrepreneur guy for how long?
Construction, since I was a teenager, so quite a while.
So you got into the construction business as a teen. Did you always work for yourself, or?
I started with my dad, and my first time I was on payroll, I was making $3.15 an hour.
All right.
Does that date me?
Maybe a little.
When I turned 16, I got my big raise to $5 an hour, and then worked for my dad in our family construction business until I ended that relationship through some bad decisions. I ran away.
Yeah.
But I took my experience. Thankfully, my dad taught me a lot about work. So I took that on the road at 17.
Okay. You went on the road and you ended up where?
From outside of Philadelphia, we took off and we were going to California because isn't that what everybody does when they run away?
Yeah.
And we didn't make it. My car broke down in Kentucky. So we limped it to Dallas, Texas, which is where I spent about a year framing houses.
Okay.
So that was my love in construction. I was a helper for all my dad's guys, whatever trade, but I loved carpentry and framing specific. So that's where I zeroed in as a young man.
So you got started doing carpentry work, and then you ended up in Fort Smith area. How'd you get to Fort Smith?
Bounced around. So it's this is going to take me some thought as I coincide decisions and dates. But when I got back to Pennsylvania, then I went around with some friends living in different places. Ocean City, Maryland was a great spot, have a lot of history there. Framing houses, roofing houses in Ocean City. And as a young kid, I went to a church camp called Spruce Lake Wilderness Camp in Canadensis, Pennsylvania by the Poconos. And I got saved. I found the Lord in Ocean City, Maryland. The guy that I was working for was a Seventh-day Adventist, and he reignited a hunger in me with the Holy Spirit, and I found the Lord and changed my life. He changed my life, and went to camp for 2 summers. So I quit construction, went to camp as a counselor for 2 summers, and then my dad invited me to Arkansas. So I came to Arkansas before I was married I can't do the math. Let me think what year. 91, I think. Yeah, we'll call it 91 or 2.
All right. So you moved to Arkansas, and then when did you start your own thing?
Well, I started it in Maryland. So I was working as an hourly framing hand, but I learned early that I had a fire for getting things done.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we have resentment built into us that we have to contend with. And sometimes the resentment for me was I was roofing with my boss, who's a good friend of mine to this day, and I had learned how much they make per quantity, per square. In roofing business, we call it a square. And I could perform as a young kid. I could nail on some shingles like fast. And so I asked him for a raise. I was like, hey, I know what you're making. I know what I'm making by the hour, and I know I made you some money. And he said, well, I know, but you work for me and this is my business. I need to make the profit. And that was a good, humbling conversation that I needed to hear. But then he kindly offered me opportunity to work, piecework, we called it. So it was, performance-driven payroll. So you got paid by the square instead of by the hour. So on every bundle of shingles at that time was a little UCP sticker, and I'd nail on a square and I'd tear that piece of paper and stuff in my tool belt. And at the end of the day, however many you had is what you got paid to compensate you for. And then framing was different. I could really nail on decking quick. Like I could sheet a house fast. And so they started paying me by the sheet. So I would just deck roofs.
Interesting.
We called ourselves a decking dog. We were decking dogs, buddy. We could deck a roof. And
okay.
So you get the appetite. The Bible says the appetite of the laborer drives him on. And I was hungry and I could eat, So I worked, and that's how I got my appetite for, I guess, entrepreneurially. That's how you get an appetite for success is, hey, I could bring home, at that time was $10 an hour, which was, $400 a week was a big paycheck for a single guy living at the beach. Or I could, do some of these side jobs and score, and then end up buying my own equipment, buying my own truck, and that's just how I think it's how it's supposed to work. If you learn a trade, so that's what started that appetite. And then moving here to Arkansas, I kind of brought that not pay scale, but I had the value scale of production versus dollars. Came here to Arkansas, and they were telling me how much it cost, how much they paid for framing, and I was so disappointed. Ocean City, Maryland was paying $325 a foot to frame a house. Arkansas was paying $2. So I went to my first job in Greenwood, and the slab was poured. I thought, well, that's cool. We didn't have slabs in Maryland. We did pier and beam. There was concrete pylons. We did wood floors and wood deck. And so I was like, well, that makes sense now. I don't have to build the floor. So
sure.
I was no longer disappointed. Arkansas had a very fair pay scale. It was equal basically to what I was used to out east.
Sure.
So off I went.
So you start framing and you start a business framing.
Well, Dad and I were building houses, but
okay,
cash flow is subcontracting.
Okay.
Specialty. That's how I fed my family is framing.
Yeah.
Sure.
So you did that for years, and then like you've gotten into real estate, you've gotten into any number of other businesses along the way. Can you maybe share a little bit about those?
I have been blessed to work for really generous people. A lot of people have passed on to me the joy in helping somebody find a place. Whether you help them develop a skill that they can take somewhere else. And I have some guys that have worked for me that I tell them, like, Justin, if you come work for me, I would say, hey, listen, I'd love for you to work for me, but I'm a dead end guy. I'm a dead end job. I will teach you a lot, but then you're just gonna have to go off and be your own guy. I'm not a business that you can say you can hang your shingle at,
Mm-hmm. Sure.
But I may used to be, and that's part of the story, but in today's world, I have some young men that come and work for me. I teach them hands-on every bit that I think I can, that I know. And I have one guy that now has his own business, and I'm really proud of him. And he actually still helps me, and we work together, but he's his own guy. Yeah. So I had some guys like that. Mark Rouse was one. Mark, as I was framing houses for him, he encouraged me to multiply my crews, get more and more crews going because he had more and more work. And then he introduced me to some of his lenders so I could start building a spec house or two on the side. So we started building houses. And then Stacy and I bought some commercial real estate and opened a business called Main Street Market. That was we rented little booths, and golly, as that comes to memory, I can't believe she still loves me. But anyway, worked and worked and worked. I mean, work. If you are an entrepreneur, I think work had better be your hobby, because you don't have time for work and a hobby.
You just got to like to work.
You just got to like to work. And I do like to work, and it gets on a lot of people's nerves. My wife and kids probably more, but my kids have learned to appreciate work as a hobby, just because you can do things that are fun, that produce.
Sure.
So my boys and I have a lot of fun working, and my girls, Chloe especially. Now we have the wedding venue, so that was man. I'm gonna hop and skip around, I guess, if we go there.
That's all right,
because that's more recent. That's 2016, and we acquired a piece of property in 2009 that I was really, really excited to have. We still have it. It's our farm located in Mulberry. And during that season, I was doing some large scale commercial deals, building 4-story hotels. And I thought I was really doing something. I was a big shot, but really I wasn't. Really, you can do $12 million a year in business and live off credit cards and realize you haven't made a penny. You simply had $12 million go through your account, or in my case, 12.1,
Sure.
And so a lot of the allure that I got sweet talked into from my own ego and from guys that knew that we could get the work done, but lost track of the business fundamentals of profit and loss. And in my prejudice now has become, I just can't stand laziness. I just don't like to be around it, because the laziness eat me up when I was in large scale business. I just get eat up with laziness. You overstaff for projects because of people's recommendations or what they say you need to have for when the storm hits. And in my world, you don't get paid if you don't work. I mean, that's how I grew up in construction. Is it raining? Then you're not getting paid. You stub your toe and you want to take off the next day? Okay. Yeah. But you ain't getting paid.
How many UPC stickers did you put in your tool belt?
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's your paycheck. And that's a little bit old school. If you get hurt, if you die on the job, we bury you where you landed. I come from that off side of the track world, and never thought anything about it, just because I just knew that it was an honest day's work for an honest day's pay.
Yeah.
And I was proud to be part of it. And more so, if you kick up your performance a little bit, you get paid more based on a pay scale that's based on performance. And I've always not only loved it, but recommended it. There's a guy in Fort Smith that I think is one of the best managers and motivators in a more of a white collar industry world, and his name's Cliff Cabanas. And that guy has really taught me how to energize people to overperform, because I never understood how to compensate somebody for overperformance outside the world of lifting boards and nailing boards and just kind of a simple-minded construction world that I'm from. But then when I yoked up with that guy on some things, and he actually knew how to motivate management. And so I realized, wow, it's not just an ego-driven macho, how many boards can you carry, how much work can you get done in a day, but it's also that skill set or that reward mentality can transfer over to a white-collar world too. Because blue-collar guys and white-collar guys always kind of had a, animosity one toward another. Oh, you can make a living sitting at a desk. We're pulling out splinters at nighttime. But even when I transitioned into management in construction, I'd go home more wore out. That's why I'm glad to be out of it.
But it sounds like one of the things that's helped you get to where you are today is finding someone to mentor you and to teach you and to help you to grow and mature in your particular field of interest?
Lots of them. I thought of a guy on my way here who gave me a fundamental principle in teaching and preaching. Actually, he was a pastor, Ben Culp, who has had a teaching fundamental that is not used today, and it's called drill and mastery. Drill and mastery.
Okay.
Our kids are taught memorization. YouTube, if you need to change your spark plugs, you can watch a YouTube, memorize how they did it, and do it. But a mechanic will change spark plugs over and over and over and over again in every different kind of vehicle, and they'll drill and then master. And even in education, our kids, if we really want them to excel, we won't teach them to memorize an answer and do it once. We'll drill them until they've mastered it. If I won't show that I'm insulted, but if somebody calls me a jack of all trades, my feelings got hurt, because I'm not. I can do just about anything, but it's not because I'm a jack. I'm a master frame carpenter. I've drilled for years and years and years and years. I'm really thankful that I did that, and I'm a master frame carpenter. I don't have a degree on the wall, but my ego will tell Justin, put me up against any framer, and I'll display my diploma. I'm a master framer. I can frame anything. It's not, in the world of carpentry, it's not really that big of a brag, because I'm not a trim master. I'm not a furniture builder. I'm not a ship builder. I mean, there's guys that have higher levels of skill than me in carpentry, but I mastered it. And once you master something, there's a fundamental platform or an experience that you can apply. So I don't just assume just because I can pour your concrete in your patio, that doesn't make me a concrete finisher, but I can do it. But I can become a master because I've mastered something. And said, I think once somebody masters a skill, they can take the skill of learning and apply it to the next thing they want to learn. That's one reason I like to homeschool kids, because they're in business. If I hire a kid and they're homeschooled, I judge them with a judgment that could be a false judgment, but I look at them and say, I think they were taught to learn. And that's a big statement, because if someone's just taught stuff, then all they have is stuff. Mm-hmm. But if they're taught to learn, then they bring a skill, because learning is actually a skill. Yeah. So I'm a good learner.
Yeah, it sounds like you've learned a lot through the years. Mm-hmm. Well, let's come maybe back to your wedding venue. What did you learn kind of along the way to get you to the point where you were like, hey, I'm going to start a wedding venue?
Well, as you shake your head wondering what the heck I'm doing in the wedding business, which is valid, to make it worse, I opened a restaurant years ago in Waldron, Arkansas. So my dad was terminally ill 18 years ago, it was a while ago. But our family's in the restaurant business in Philadelphia. So Marrone's Pizza was opened in 1946 for my grandparents, and it's still open today. So that is a significant statement of endurement. I mean, that pizza is pretty good. It has endured through the decades. 1946. And think about it, that's going to be a century soon enough.
It won't be long.
Wow. I hadn't thought about that till now. So anyway, Grandma and Grandpa started Marrone's Pizza outside of Philly in 1946. So I grew up not in that restaurant business, because my dad, when he and my mom left to raise their kids, we got out of it. But I've always been the kid that when we went to the restaurant, my dad would say, hey, we're in a restaurant. He understood from the restaurant business, you don't act a fool in a restaurant. That's a place of business. That is somebody's livelihood, So I really, at a young age, understood the hospitality industry from that perspective. And then I made pizzas in different shops. As a bachelor, I'd always have a second job at a pizza shop so I could eat, and loved it, still love it. And then my dad, when we moved to Arkansas, he said, I want to open up an Italian restaurant. He was dying, and he had a little bit of money, and it didn't take long for that little bit of money to disappear, because a restaurant, if you want to become a millionaire in the restaurant business, start with $2 million. That's the true joke. So we got, that was an expensive hobby for a while, but it's an industry that I'm at least comfortable in saying that I am qualified to do. Hospitality is different than service. I'm in the service industry as a contractor. I work myself out of a job. Justin needs a deck, I'll build it, and then I'm unemployed. You always find a service you can perform, and then that keeps your lights on. The hospitality industry is similar, except you want to treat somebody good enough that they keep coming back. Restaurant, hotel, wedding venue. So we had a barn half built, and some folks in our world that wanted a wedding venue wanted me to build it because they liked Stacy's style and my construction abilities, but didn't have the land. And so we yoked up with them.
Okay.
And so that's how we started the Kindred Barn with Nick and Samantha Daniels in 2015, opened the doors for our first wedding 2016. Mm-hmm. And that was really, my joke was the only qualifications I have is I've been married for 20 some odd years. Today it's 26 years, but then it was less. And, but we did have that understanding that when people show up, it had better be spotless. When they show up, they better feel welcome. When they leave, they better be glad they were there. We weren't serving them food, but we're still serving them hospitality. Mm-hmm. And Stacy, my wife, is a shoe-in for that. She's the sweetest Southern girl in the South. She's pretty as any picture. And she was a server at restaurants, so she understood the restaurant business, and she opened one with me, so she understood the nuts and bolts of it and the welcoming smile. And she is a maniac clean freak. And so the place looks and smells immaculate. So everybody that comes there, whether they have drama or not, generally, I think almost exclusively has a great experience. So I'm really, really thankful for that way to not just demonstrate that skill set and make a living off of it, but then teach that to our kids. Yeah. Because that's been neat, having them be part of it.
So how many folks are employed as part of the Kindred Barn?
Not many. It's kind of like contracting.
Okay.
I can contract without a lot of employees, but you bring in vendors, you bring in subcontractors and provide them an opportunity to make a living. So at any given wedding, there may only be 3 of us, but there's multiple photographers sometimes, there's coordinators, there's caterers. So the wedding industry converges on the Kindred Barn every weekend. Mm-hmm. They're not my employees, but Stace and I have learned that their screw-ups look bad on us. So we've actually helped many caterers. We've helped many coordinators, because you can just see things. Oh man, it's almost sad. I'm glad I don't know their names because I didn't want to throw anybody under the bus, but it's just so embarrassing when you see something going south. And it was neat. This one young lady was coordinating a wedding and she had just lost control. And Stacy stepped in and, took some responsibilities off of her that she didn't even remember were hers, type of thing, because she can see the mother of the bride get frustrated, just turn that thing right side up.
Yeah.
Because that we weren't just doing it out of kindness. We're selfish too. We wanted to make sure our reputation gets tainted.
Yeah.
So, but Kindred Barn right now has my family, depending on what's needed. We have a full-time manager, Gabby, and then a full-time, part-time cleaning lady who helps clean, mm-hmm. Amber. So there's 6 or 7 of us that get to draw a check.
Yeah.
Actually 5 because Stacey and I don't. It's just the way it is when you own the business.
Yeah. So you mentioned all of these subcontractors and folks that are coming in. You mentioned the folks that are, of course, employed by you as part of that. How do you keep the communication structure flowing effectively?
Well, you got to remember, man, I started in business before there was actually a cell phone. My first phone was years after I started business, and it was the bag phone that I had to go to Alltel in Fort Smith that they wired into my Mitsubishi, and actually missed that thing. It was pretty simple, click, cord, it was kind of cool. But anyway, so communication gets easier and easier through this age of communication we live in, but I do seem to lose track sometimes of certain lines of communication I wish I was more of a part of, whether it's an email thread or just me not getting the call because I'm probably a control freak more than I wished I was. But I've been broke. I've had businesses go like all the way broke, like court broke. And so you just, that's an experience that you don't wish upon your enemy, and that you want to be careful never happens again. And so I don't know that I'm overly protective of the dollar, but I'm definitely overly protective of the job. And so being careful and, on construction, being careful and I can make a lot of money if I don't make mistakes in construction. But when you make mistakes, my dad taught me, when you make a mistake, it costs you 5 times what you think it cost you, because it cost you the time to make the mistake wrong the first time. Then it cost you that amount of time to undo that mistake. Then it cost you that amount of time to redo that mistake. And then it cost you those 2 sections of time that you could have been doing other things. So that's 5 units of cost for one mistake. And that's a tough lesson for a 14-year-old to hear from his dad,
Did you make a mistake?
Oh my gosh, yeah. Yeah, many, many mistakes. And he wasn't necessarily a soft-spoken guy, but he was a lovable guy.
Yeah. So you've had some things that didn't go well. So as an entrepreneur, you've started things and they didn't always turn out all right.
Yeah, you could bring any entrepreneur in America, sit him in this chair and ask him that question. Yes, Justin, that is part of being an entrepreneur. You had better have some iron in your jaw, because you're going to get punched. Yeah, glass jaw folks do not last in an entrepreneurial business or industry.
Do you see those times where it didn't work out well as failure or as learning opportunities?
No, always learning, always. I mean, I'm a high school dropout, so I spent 0 money. I got my GED because my grandmother would not let me go on living without it, as if that was the only way into heaven. But I spent not a penny on college. So I feel like I have paid quite a bit of money for my education, literally. And so if I take a beating on a job, or if I do something wrong and it costs me, I do lie to myself and say, it's just like state college, man. You're good. Just go home and figure it out. But there was a business venture that I had embarked on that took me to a level of risk that I did not have a big enough parachute for, and building multi-million-dollar hotels and building some government subsidized housing projects that were micromanaged by all kinds of bureaucracy, I've learned that are not for me.
You mentioned the need for, you said, I didn't have a parachute big enough. Mm-hmm. How important do you think it is to have a parachute going into a business venture?
Very, very, very. Capitalizing your risk, capitalizing the risk is so important. The term learning curve, no banker wants to hear learning curve. They want to hear experience. They want to hear confidence. Bankers want to know that not only do you know what you're doing, but that you know how to do it right, because mistakes cost real money. And parachute is in business, unfortunately. I mean, I'm a man of faith, but parachute in business is cash or lines of credit, but cash being the best one, because sometimes they'll turn that line of credit off if they know that it's going for the wrong reason. So you want to be careful for sure.
What would you tell someone that is trying to get going and is trying to navigate that parachute structure? And and have those communications with a bank as an example that may not know all of the pieces, what do they do?
I would go back to what Pastor Ben taught me, first of all, drill and mastery. Is what you're doing what you're really good at. Not what you're woke up in the middle of the night, you had a dream and you really fell in love with raising white roses. I want to be a white rose gardener, or whatever it is you think you want to do. Because how many, I'm going to sound like an old man now, but how many young people will come to you with a business plan as if you're the banker? And here's a beautiful business plan. Have you done this before? Well, no. But it's a great plan, isn't it? So I would say, listen, put your time in. Drill and mastery. My grandpa said, if you want to climb a ladder, start at the bottom rung. Because you ever jump to the second or third rung of a ladder? Yeah, Jackie Chan will land it. You and I, we may end up with a broken shin. So drill and mastery. Make sure you're excellent at what you want to do. And then start small. The paving business, my brother and I'm not a paving expert. I know concrete very well, and I know dirt relatively well. And I actually got into it because I needed a stretch of road paved for a project that I was doing for a guy. And the quotes were just crazy. And I went to a friend of mine who had a small paving company, and he said, why don't you use the laydown machine, pave it yourself, and if you like it, buy it. And I didn't have, I'm making myself sound like a guy who could just write a check for a paving business. That's not me. But regardless, I thought, yeah, I will try that. And so he brought his experience, and I brought my ego, and we paved a road. Why not?
Just that simple.
Yeah, really.
So you hear that? You just need a road. Just go pave
So I'm being a hypocrite in telling the story because I just said drill and mastery. But the next project was filling potholes. That was a really go backwards project for me. I spent more money moving equipment to the job than the job was worth. But I learned so much about compaction and pothole filling. And then my brother and I own a commercial property in Oklahoma, and we thought, heck, our parking lot needs seal coated. So, we brought the guy over and we so we're starting small and doing our own projects. And then I showed you the picture of a striping job that we did today. It's small. And that is fundamentally the key to success, is don't get ahead of yourself.
Build
slowly. And it's really a lot of fun.
But you're taking calculated risks with these things.
Oh, sure.
Right? I mean, it's not like you got into the paving thing and you've never been around it before. It's not like you came from being a rose gardener, like you mentioned.
No. I'm comfortable with that, with equipment, yellow equipment. And I mean, we have equipment, skid steers and dozers and all kinds of Tonka toys in it. And so you get comfortable with that. And but mobilization, I mean, this isn't something that you get to do overnight. This is something that it takes years. If you do it overnight, you'll bury yourself up in debt.
Yeah.
And then you'll be a slave to the payment, and that is stressful. I know that it's stressful. So it's no way to run a business. And then you got to love it. If you don't love it, you're going to work the rest of your life. Me, I'm not going to work the rest of my life. It really is my hobby. I really do enjoy it. The other day, I was one of my clients has a lot of rental property, and he asked me to go build 2 decks and tear down a shed. And there's certain clients that I will just do anything for. Some clients I just build duplexes for, and some. Really, I don't work for the public. Generally, I only do referral work now, thank the Lord. And I have a few clients that I know will keep me busy, and we treat each other real fair. And so he said, build these 2 decks and tear down the shed. And I never do anything without sending him a quote first. I don't surprise anybody with a bill after the fact, So I send him a quote. I go out there, we build one of the decks, and I look at that shed, and I thought, that's a pretty nice little shed. I sent Stacy a picture. I said, that would make a nice little chicken coop. So instead of tearing it down, I drug my SkyTrack out there and my triaxle trailer, and I loaded that dude up and I set it on the trailer. And you don't understand how much fun that is. I mean, Justin probably does. You probably get it. Most people don't understand how fun it is to lift a little shed and load it on a trailer. It's a blast. And so I did it. And I was tired. It was work. And then it sat on that trailer for 2 days because I was scared to drag it home because it was oversized. And my boss, my client, called me and he said, hey, you better get that thing out of there. Everybody's wanting to buy it from me because it's sitting on the trailer in the front yard. And
it's ready to go.
Yeah, it's a free shed for them, or whatever they can give. I said, I'll get it out tomorrow. So I drug that thing home last night. And then I had it on my trailer's 30 inches off the ground. And I'm by myself, and I'm a little bit of an egomaniac. I'm like, I can do this, But the question is, can you do it without it falling to pieces when it hits the ground, So I put my runners underneath it, and I put my pulling points, and I slid it backwards, and it teetered, and, started to do this. And then I got to that breakover point, and my tractor wouldn't pull it anymore. I thought, I guess I'm going to pull out from under it. So then I pulled out from under it real slow, and it went down the ramp. Bam, Stacy come out. What are you doing? That's not where I wanted it. Oh, so I drug it around the house. I just have fun. I'm so spoiled. It's not even fair, really. I have more fun than human beings should be allowed to have. That's what Rush Limbaugh says. I don't know if you hear. Anyway, I have a lot of fun. So I don't go to work every day. I go play with responsibility.
Yeah. Sounds like it.
I do. It's a blast. I'll tell you, you asked me what mentors fundamentally taught me some things. Pastor Ben, I'll never forget many things he's taught me, but the drill and mastery. But there's another one. There's a movie called The Edge with Anthony Hopkins and Alec Baldwin. Have you ever seen it?
I don't know that I have.
So the airplane crashes, the little single engine plane crashes in Alaska, and there's 3 passengers and a pilot. Pilot dies. And 3 passengers, I won't spoil it for you, but they get chased by a Kodiak bear as they're trying to find their way down this mountain. So they're in survival mode. They have a Snickers bar and a lighter and a knife. So Anthony Hopkins, he's a really kind of neat elderly actor, and he's got all the wisdom, and he's walking around the campfire, and this Kodiak bear is stalking him. And he said, he told a story about the Eskimo Indian boys, how their passage right to manhood was to kill a bear with a knife. So he's telling this story, and his line that stuck with me is, what one man can do, another can do. And I'm a child of God. I'm a guy. I see guys do crazy stuff, and maybe some of it I don't want to do. I'm not a roller coaster guy. I don't need to go to a roller coaster to have fun. But I see some guys do things, and I think, they can do it. Well, one man can do, another can do, So that's been, that's kind of kept me a little bit crazy, doing things that maybe I shouldn't have tried. But so far, I haven't regretted too many of them.
But you've taken some risk.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, entrepreneurs do that, for sure.
And you learned a lot along the way.
I remember framing houses in Texas, and I was a runaway, 17 years old, with this Texas framing crew. I mean, they were brutal lifestyle. And I wouldn't walk walls. These 8-foot walls, you have to get up there and walk around the top plate so they could nail the top braces and string line them and run joists. And they had me in tears, just scared, just my knees wobbling. And they drove me and shamed me and challenged me. And I think that was my passage to manhood, because I went from crying in front of these guys, but they didn't give up on me. They drove me, and I became not only a wall walker, but I was because I only weighed 140 pounds. So when they build the scaffolding outside the second story windows for the Cornish, I was the first one on the scaffolding because they wanted to know if it was going to hold, So I lost my fear of heights And, but I was driven,
Yeah.
I guess you had to, I just had to do it.
I don't think that would have been me up there. I would have been also crying, I think, if I was up there trying to walk.
Yeah, but you get past the tears,
It's hard to walk on a wall when you can't see because you're crying.
Oh, well, I can't remember how that went down, but I became the wall walking dude for sure.
Wow.
Not today. I mean, I can walk an 8-foot wall, but it's so funny. You get up on a 12-foot plate, and I get what they call lock knee. I can take a step out there and go, and just go down to the plate and inch myself back down.
Climb back down the ladder.
I used to. I've fallen a number of times. I almost got killed on a job in Fort Smith, framing a house, and I had a rafter slip off a ridge and hit me in the chest and begin to knock me off the scaffolding. Big house in Riley Farms, and barely caught myself. I got down and kissed the ground, prayed, thanked the Lord type of moment. Searched my soul. What did I do? Oh man, I better go get right. He almost killed me over it. No regrets though. I love it. Still do.
Well, maybe we'll get ready to wrap up, and I'll just ask the question about you're in business with your wife.
Mm-hmm. Have been since we've been married.
And since the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
She has been involved in some form or fashion in this entrepreneurial lifestyle.
Which is so glamorous. I mean, that poor girl, when we were building houses, during the recession, we had 5 houses for sale and they weren't selling back in 08, 09. I'm bad with years. But anyway, she's got young kids, nursing a kid, and she went and bought her own tilt trailer and took our lawnmower and weed eater and was mowing 5 yards, 2 days a week with all these kids, keeping it pretty so we could sell, doing the books, and homeschooling our kids, and waitressing at Cracker Barrel when things got tough. She's all in. She's a rock star for sure.
How important has that been in keeping things moving for you throughout the years?
Can't really put it in a sentence, but I'll tell you biblically what it is, because I'll never forget the lesson that was taught me about the power of a woman. In Proverbs 31, it talks about the virtuous woman. And so we always go to certain scriptures about how the virtuous woman can mend she knits and mends, and that's all cute. But there's one scripture that says that a woman has the power to bring down kings. It's just half of a verse. All these Proverbs and Psalms, they're always 2-sentence verses. A woman has the power to bring down kings. And you and I, we think of ourselves as the king of our home. We're the priest of our home. We're the man of the house. We wear the pants. So in certain terms, you and I could call ourselves the king of our home. Our wife could be the queen.
Sure.
Right? In certain terms. Because God gave men the authority in the home. That's just biblical. Well, what good is authority without power? Because he gave us authority, but he gave the woman the power. So I have the same thankfulness and responsibility to my wife as you do and any man does. She has the power to ruin you or the power to make you. And I have the authority to make sure I'm worth making. And and she's more powerful than I am authoritative in that regard. I mean, I'm halfway glad she's not here to tell you all the bad parts of our story because of who I really am, because she knows, I can tell you all the neat highlights, and but Stacy knows the dirt, and if she wanted to unleash her power on me, she could ruin me. Right? Well, yeah. She won't. She hasn't, and I'm thankful. She's chosen to use her power to make me.
That's great. I don't know how to follow that. I think that's a really great story, and a really, really great way to show encouragement and love and respect for your wife, and how she's helped to get you to where you are today.
She really has. From Main Street Market to the Kindred Barn, she's run just about every business that I've been a part of.
That's great. Well, I just want to say thank you for coming on the show and telling your stories and telling us about your history and how you got to where you're at and the things that you've learned along the way. And I really hope that folks learn something from it today and take a bit of wisdom away from it.
Well, it's been an honor. It's neat rehearsing it because I need reminded how good my life is, how good it's been through it all, and how good God is to me and Stacy. But yeah, thanks, Justin. It's been really fun.
I'm grateful you chose to listen. Please help us out by following, liking, or subscribing to our content at Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. Take care and have a blessed day.